my number 2 son actually went to dad's for the summer for like 9 weeks.
That's the way to do it.
And number 1 son
Right.
stayed because he has summer school and a girlfriend. And so he's like, but he's gonna go in like a week. He'll go for just a month instead. It's really weird to have like one gone from a set. But not
There's
the
no
other
way to
one.
do it.
He was like getting mad at Alex, the youngest, because
Sorry, didn't mean to yell. I know, but he was.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I could have said anything.
All right. Makes sense.
Want to call the meeting to order? Roll call, Sasha? Is Sasha going on Zoom?
Yes, Mayor Barnes.
Wonderful. Roll
Morris.
call, please.
here.
Larson.
Here.
Verbic. Favor.
Here.
McAdams.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Mayor Barnes.
Here.
Perkins is here.
Perkins, right. Sorry.
No worries. All right, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would love to have Navy veteran, Alderman Tony Favor, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance
Thank you, Alderman Favor. All right, we have before us the agenda. I would take a motion to either approve the agenda or a modification of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Morris, seconded by Alderman Favor. Roll call.
Alderman Morris.
Yes.
Alderman Larson.
Yes.
Alderman Perkins.
Yes.
Alderman Smith.
Yes.
Alderman McAdams.
Yes.
Alderman Favor.
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes. Wonderful. And City Clerk Cohen, just let us know if we need to speak up or anything. I really appreciate you, even being under the weather, still being able to maintain and log in and run our meeting. So thank you for that. All right, moving on to item number D, or agenda letter D, public participation. As far as I know, I have one speaker request form. That would be from Mary Hess, our new township supervisor. Mary?
Good evening. I just wanted to come and tell you about a really positive experience I had over the course of the last few weeks with Marcus Cox, your transit manager. So I read online that the city was implementing a new bus route, Route 19, that would be going along South 4th Street. And we're located on South 4th Street, and the nearest bus stop to us in the past, I believe, was Huntley Middle School. And so our shared township and city residents who needed to come to the township had quite a distance to walk, and if there was bad weather, it was even worse. And so it was a transportation barrier. So after I read this, I called Marcus and I said, hey, I see you're going to be coming along this route. Would you consider putting a route in by the township? And last Friday, I believe it was, he called me and told me to look across the street, and the sign was installed for the bus stop. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that he was so easy to work with, and I look forward to future cooperation between the township and the city.
Man, that's great. Thanks, Mary. It is wonderful. We don't always hear all the good things going on, so it's cool you took the time to come out and let us know that, so thanks. All right, moving on to agenda item E, presentations. I have 2 proclamations I wanted to read. Let me grab those. So first is a proclamation for the LGBTQIA+ Pride Month. Whereas the LGBTQ Plus Pride Month is celebrated nationwide in the month of June. And whereas this month was chosen to commemorate the riots that took place the morning of June 28, 1969, at the Stonewall Inn in New York, often viewed as the birth of the modern LGBTQIA plus rights movement. Whereas it is important to take time during this month to reflect on the LGBTQIA plus rights movement and the important progress that has been made. And whereas the City of DeKalb recognizes that one of its greatest strengths is the diversity of its people. And whereas the City of DeKalb believes in the dignity of the individual, supporting legal equality and treatment for all people, and ensuring the acts of discrimination and hatred will not be tolerated. And whereas members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, plus communities, LGBTQIA plus, contribute to our community's success and strengths in a great number of immeasurable ways. And whereas the LGBTQIA plus individuals continue to face discrimination simply for being who they are, continue to be a target of violence and harassment, and yet continue to thrive they continue to thrive through the efforts of the community itself and through the support of the LGBTQIA plus affirming spaces, agencies, businesses, and individual allies. And whereas discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity is often compounded with the discrimination on the basis of race, immigration status, religion, disability, and age, among others. And whereas the City of DeKalb strives to lead in affirming the lives and values of the LGBTQIA plus individuals through its actions, laws, employees, and commissions. And whereas lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual plus individuals, LGBTQI plus, invite all members of the DeKalb community to join them during the month of June in celebrating the resiliency of the community. Now therefore, I, Cohen Barnes, Mayor of DeKalb, do hereby proclaim June 21st as LGBTQIA plus Pride Month in the City of DeKalb. And I encourage all people in our community to join in celebrating diversity, promoting inclusion and equity. And I further encourage people to join me in eliminating discriminatory policies and practices towards any culture, race, or group. Wonderful. And Zach, I think we have a few people that I can hand this off to. Awesome. All right, I've got one more proclamation to read here, and it's a proclamation for Stagecoach Players Week. So, whereas Stagecoach Players of DeKalb County, Inc., founded in the spring of 1947, is celebrating its 75th season in 2021-2022, making it one of the oldest community theaters in the state of Illinois in point of continuous service. And whereas Stagecoach Players has had its home, the Stagecoach Theater, on 126 South 5th Street, DeKalb, Illinois, since 2001. And whereas Stagecoach Players has produced numerous musicals, plays, cabarets, and other theatrical productions during the 75 seasons of its existence, and has collaborated with many venues, including the Egyptian Theater. And whereas Stagecoach Players, in these productions, has given creative opportunities to over 10,000 performers from the northern Illinois area and over 10,000 technicians. And whereas Stagecoach Players, through these productions, has delighted audiences of over 500,000. And whereas Stagecoach Players, through these productions, has provided valuable training and experience for a significant number of performers and backstage technicians who have gone on to pursue careers in entertainment and the arts profession. And whereas Stagecoach Players has contributed its funds, talents, and properties to other organizations, including Northern Illinois University, Children's Community Theater, Family Service Agency, NIRIS, local schools, Kishwaukee Community Hospital, Kiwanis, Gerler House, NIU Elder Hostel, Community Expos, Egyptian Theater, and the Egyptian Theater's live lunch music series. And whereas Stagecoach Players has expanded its community outreach to provide food for 15 food pantries, food for Salvation Army's Thanksgiving meal collection, and Christmas gifts for the Salvation Army, Family Service Agency, and Toys for Tots. And whereas the Stagecoach Players has utilized social media to present virtual cabarets and offer virtual games, productions, and workshops. And whereas Stagecoach Players has been recognized for the excellence of its work by the Altrusa Club, the cities of DeKalb and Sycamore, and by grants from the DeKalb County Community Foundation and the Illinois Arts Council. Now therefore, I, Cohen Barnes, do hereby proclaim the week of June 27th through July 4th, 2021, as Stagecoach Players Week in recognition of its excellence in service and its contribution to citizens of DeKalb. Nice job, all. Is there anyone here from Stagecoach to receive this? All right, we'll put that on file and make sure that gets to them. All right, wonderful. Moving on to agenda item F, appointments. There are none. So moving on to agenda item G, consent agenda. I would take a motion to pass this agenda item or to remove an individual item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderwoman Morris. Roll call.
Mayor, you need to read it, I believe.
Oh, do I? Thank you very much. So the consent agenda is minutes of the regular council meeting of the June 14th, 2021. Item number 2, accounts payable and payroll through June 28th, 2021, in the amount of $2,134,568.25. Number 3, investment and bank balance summary through April 2021. Item 4, year-to-date revenues and expenditures through April 2021. Item 5, Freedom of Information Act FOIA report, May 2021. And item number 6, authorization of the Northern Illinois University's Masters of Public Administration MPA Internship Annual Agreement. Roll call.
Larson,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
McAdams,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, moving on to agenda item H, public hearings. There are none. Then moving on to agenda item I, considerations. Item number 1, comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR presentation. Do I need to recuse myself from this one, or I can't remember now? No, okay. I'll explain that comment here in a little bit, everyone. All right, City Manager Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor. We are tonight celebrating the completion of our annual independent audit. And in my background, I've introduced you to some of the reports that are part of that annual audit. The largest data portion of that is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR is the acronym. But we also, as part of the, is that me? You okay? I'm okay. I was getting some feedback. We also include in the annual independent audit the annual TIF report, a single audit for our community development block grant program and fund, downstate operating assistance certification independent auditors reports for our transit program as the target, and 2020 auditors communication to the city council and management, which is a summary, a very succinct summary of how they appraised our overall process. With us tonight is Brian LaFavor, who led the Stagecoach auditing team and their independent audit in recent months, and I'm going to defer to him.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening. On behalf of Stagecoach, I'd like to thank the mayor and the members of City Council for inviting us to present the report resulting from the audit of the city for your year ended December 31st, 2020. The report is in draft form, just a minor issue with adopting a budget amendment to comply with the document, which you're taking care of this evening. Upon your approval of the and acceptance of the comprehensive annual financial report this evening, all of the documents will be finalized. Electronic documents will go to city staff tomorrow, and then hard copies will follow within the next week or two as well. So the comprehensive annual financial report, the acronym that you see there, will be a different acronym next year. GASB, who sets the rules for financial reporting, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, is in the process of changing the name. Apparently the name is offensive to a certain a group of people in Africa. So that acronym will be changing, so you'll be able to take that out of the document for next year. The comprehensive annual financial report accomplishes one key piece and then becomes a comprehensive document for the other pieces, and that key piece is the financial section. That's what's required under Illinois compiled statutes for an audit. The introductory and statistical section make it a comprehensive annual financial report, and within the introductory section, you'll see the camera-ready copy of the award that you received for this document for 2019. And upon your acceptance this evening, the city staff will file for the award for this year. So 27 consecutive years that the city's received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. So if you're following along on the PDF of the report, it's on Roman numeral 3, and that's the award that you received for the 2019 year. And that's the highest level of financial reporting within the local government industry. So you should all be commended for your participation in that program. I am just going through a few highlights, so am happy to answer questions as we go. But the next key document is in the financial section of the report. It's regular page number 1. And this is the opinion that we are giving on the financial statements. In its final form, it'll be on Stagecoach letterhead. Right now, obviously, everything says draft on it. And that opinion is a unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of opinion that you can receive on your financial statements. And what that means is that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, free of material misstatement, also referred to as a clean audit opinion. And that opinion is received after we follow 2 sets of standards: the auditing standards issued by the AICPA that tells us the types of procedures we need to perform, and then those financial reporting standards that come from GASB, the organization I mentioned before. They set all the rules for financial reporting for local governments such as yourself. The last page of the independent auditor's report refers to, which is page number 3, refers to other reporting with government auditing standards. So this references the single audit, and the single audit is a grant compliance audit. Anytime the city expends more than $750,000 in federal funds, you're required to have a compliance or grant audit to comply with these requirements in the Single Audit Act issued by the federal government. This year, the city expended over $4.1 million in federal expenditures. And the single audit has 2 opinions that we issued in that report, both also clean, unmodified opinions. One is a compliance with laws and regulations that could have a material impact on your financial statements, so an unmodified opinion there, and then an unmodified opinion on your compliance with the major programs we tested. The major program we tested this year was the COVID-19 grant, of which that was $1.8 million of the $4.1 million that were expended in federal awards. In addition, as Bill mentioned, there's also a separate report on each of your TIF districts, one report for the 3 TIFs, and we also issued an unmodified opinion in that document as well. So all good news there. A couple of the highlights in the financial statements so you can find your way around. The management discussion and analysis, which follows our independent auditor's report, is the executive summary of the report. It's a very large document. If you want to see the highlights and explanations from the city's management team of the changes between fiscal years in terms of the numbers in the financial statements, I would encourage you to read that executive summary. In addition, if you have any constituents that are interested in the finances of the city, the annual budget document is always a good place to refer them to, but within the actual results, you want to refer them to this management discussion and analysis. That's going to be the most user-friendly place to look for financial information. Just past the independent auditors, the management discussion and analysis are the financial statements themselves. You'll find government-wide financial statements that basically are your consolidated financial statements. It's not how you operate, but it is required to receive that unmodified opinion that we discussed. Those you'll only see, like I said, in the annual audit. The fund financial information that gives you information about the specific funds that the city budgets for, that's really, in my opinion, the meat and potatoes of the financial statements. So your general fund had fund balance or reserves of just over $12.8 million at the end of the fiscal year. up $1.7 million from the prior year. And that $1.7 million pretty much equates to about what you received in COVID funding. So even without the COVID funding, you operated at a break even, which is pretty amazing. So you should all be commended for that, and staff for all of your leadership in doing that. So what we would describe your main operating fund as being structurally in balance. You can afford to provide the services that you're providing with the revenue streams coming in. You'll also find an operating statement for the enterprise operations of the city, which include the water fund and the airport fund. The water fund had a slight increase to fund balance, and the airport had a slight decrease to fund balance. And then finally, you'll find information, a lot of information in the report related to the pension plans of the city. So your IMRF plan is operated centrally by the state of Illinois, where everyone participates together, and you each have your share of the assets in that plan. And then you have your locally held police and fire boards. Now, those police and fire boards will continue, but we're in the process of learning what's happening with consolidation, whereby each of the investments of each of those individual funds will move to a statewide consolidated police fund and a statewide consolidated fire fund. Your fire fund was probably notified last week on which phase that their assets will be moving to the consolidated fire fund. The police fund is a little bit further behind and have not sent out those notifications yet. You'll also find, subsequent to the notes to the financial statements, a section called Required Supplementary Information, and it's on hard copy, so bottom of the page, page 84. There's information in there related to the funding for IMRF, police pension, and fire pension as it relates to the actuary's recommended contribution. And the city continues to put in what's recommended by the actuary, so fully funding each and every year what's required by the actuary to fully fund those plans by 2040, which is the current statutory provision for full funding for police and fire. Happy to report that all of your pension funds had an increase in their funding percentage, if you will, which is the assets held in the plan divided by the actuarial liability for the active members plus the beneficiaries. Your IMRF plan went from 92% funded to almost 99% funded. The police pension went from 50% to 54%, and your fire fund went from 38.6% to 40%. Obviously, those are significant dollars coming out of your operating budget that are going to fund each of those pension plans, but did want to make sure you all had an update on the status of those plans. You can find all those details in the report. Those are some of the highlights of the report. In conclusion, the audit was challenging again. Auditing during a pandemic is no different than, folks coming to work needing to do city business during the pandemic, except we're doing these things mostly in a remote environment. So it's challenging. You had some staff turnover in your finance department, but I'm happy to report that the city team really stepped up between Bill and Josh, really kept things on time, regular Zoom calls with our Stagecoach team to make sure that we were on track, making sure we knew who was doing what at all times, made for a really efficient and effective audit. And so I'd like to thank the city staff for one, being so professional, and then working so hard with our Stagecoach team as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Council, questions? Looking around. Alderman?
Not a question. I went over and told Josh before the meeting started, this is like the Super Bowl for the finance team, and well-deserved kudos to Bill and Josh and the finance team. Your report says a lot about the city staff and the preparation that they've taken, the care and due diligence that they operate with every single day when handling the taxpayers' money. So I just want to say thank you very much to you guys. Appreciate it very much. Good job.
Questions, comments? So for me, I definitely want to say the team that we have at the City of DeKalb, I concur, is just absolutely amazing. My trust level with our team is high, but it's wonderful to have a third party come in and do the trust but verify portion. just to make sure that, I mean, we're a public body, and we have to make sure everything is done to the most integrity that we possibly can. And it's just nice that your organization and your firm take the time to come in and do that and do it so well. So really appreciate that. And also appreciate council. You know, I'm riding on the coattails of a lot of the things that you did over the past couple of years, but it's great to hear that overall our budget was really sound, even without the COVID funding. So kudos to all of you here on the work that you did prior to my time here. But hearing no other questions, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Enjoy working with the city.
All right, item number 2, report on American Rescue Plan as it pertains to the city of DeKalb. City Manager Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor. Just maybe to put a cap on the
Yeah.
last item, I just want to thank Brian and his team. And he's right, COVID did put constraints on how we could interact. And sometimes that's a very intimate thing, lots of boxes, lots of files to look at, not just paper files, but now predominantly digital files. But we worked it out, and his firm is also ultra professional, so thank you for everything. So what I'm going to just very briefly walk you through now are some general considerations relating to the city's current and future allocations from the American Rescue Plan, which was really a phenomenal federal investment in government and non-governmental units around the country. It was signed into law in March of this year, March 11th to be exact, and pretty aggressively the federal government through the U.S. Treasury has been clarifying some of the details of the plan and defining for people at our level what the constraints are. I can tell you just generally, and maybe this is known, maybe it's not, whereas the CARES Act, which was the 2020 funding that came in that Brian referred to in his report, was primarily designed to fill the boot, I guess you would say, the gaps that had occurred because of falls in revenue and constraints on spending, and also unusual spending, such as overtime spending to provide extraordinary services. Most of the thrust of the American Rescue Plan is forward-looking, although there is a portion of it that takes into account that when the CARES Act was passed in the third quarter of 2020, there was still more damage that was experienced in fiscal terms by communities such as ours, and so there is some consideration for revenue loss. But then, as I put in my background, there's also a focus on how we can be proactive in helping underserved populations and dealing with some infrastructure issues that have been much in the news in the last couple of years, not the least of which is in the area of water services, and lead services, and I've touched on that. Specifically, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, I want to say before I say throw a few statistics out here that this is the first of a series of reports that will come to the council. There will be an annual report every year to show you what we've done, but every quarter we will do a setup for you to make the decisions on how this money is to be spent. And at one of the next meetings, we will have a first plan presented to you for consideration and either approval or further consideration. The first and unique interim report, the very first report that everybody has to turn in, will be for any spending that occurred from the time that you received the first allocation, and we received an allocation already of $5.2 million and some change, which has been sitting in an escrow fund. Not a dollar has been spent, pending further discussion with the council and approval by the council of anything that we propose to spend. And the report will be on any activity up through July 31st. And so we're going to have a couple quick things we'd like to do, and we'll try to provide some plausible reasons why you would support them. And then that report is due to the U.S. Treasury at the end of August of this year, and thereafter a quarterly report. So it doesn't take the place of a quarterly report, and then an annual report. And this will go on through 2024, maybe longer. It depends when our last dollars are spent. So you'll have lots of opportunities to guide us and guide the community in how this money will be spent. The money that was transferred to us, was wired to us, was put in an escrow account. We consulted with Brian and his team to determine what might be the best way to park it for now. Created our own, a new fund. The general fund is known as Fund 100. The water fund is Fund 600. The capital projects fund is 400, 420. There are a couple different capital funds, and motor fuel tax, that's the 200 fund. So this is 110, as close as we could get to the 100, and nothing's been spent out of it yet. But that will be the fund where monies will be transported to from the escrow as the council directs us to spend them. So going forward, we'll just keep that in mind and make further reference to it. In the background, I very generally described what the federal act says we can spend the money on. I mentioned revenue loss. I also mentioned that there are investments that can be made in water, sewer, roads, and broadband as four major categories. Also, funds can be transferred to what are called non-entitlement units, NEUs, and there's another acronym for you, such as the Kishwaukee Water Reclamation District, which does not get a direct allocation from the U.S. Treasury, but is involved, of course, in local infrastructure and suffered losses associated with services that were not able to provide at NIU because of the pretty severe drop in student population over the last year, over the COVID pandemic, heart of it. So I've laid out the general categories. I intend to come back to you in no later than the second meeting in July with the first round of what I think are important expenditures to make, and we can talk more about the details then. Any general questions at this point?
Council, questions, comments? Seeing a lot of head shaking. All right, no, sounds good, City Manager Nicholas, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 3, commemoration of the Juneteenth National Holiday in DeKalb. It's pretty historic, City Manager Nicholas, so please share.
Yeah. So I was working on the agenda the weekend of Juneteenth and went to the wonderful event that occurred over on Black Hawk and had a couple appointments, and then later in the day I got to cranking out the first pass at our agenda tonight, and I was thinking, as an American historian, I ought to say something about the day and the importance of the day going forward in this community. And it occurred to me that it was important for us, particularly since I think this community has been making some significant strides in bridging gaps and connecting and honoring our diversity. And I thought it was important that we not just have a proclamation, although I'll probably bring a proclamation at the next meeting, but just as a first step to declaring that this is a day hereafter that we want to encourage people to take time out from their regular workday lives and think about the meaning of that day back in 1865. So 156 years ago, we're still trying to put into practice the principles that were being discussed at that time by the Congress. And I think one way to do that is for us as an organization to recognize that day. It's obviously a national holiday. We had no vote on that, but that we should declare that a holiday so our employees can participate in events, and we are actively involved, hopefully going next year and in future years, in making those events meaningful and times for discussion of the import of what's been done in our 156, and then it'll be 157 years of trying to live together and to build a juster and a more equitable society. So it's a warning, I guess, more than anything else, and if you're on the same page as me, I intend to proceed with that, and there will be some steps I'll be bringing back.
Any questions, comments? So some head nods to proceed forward with that?
Thank you.
Yeah. I actually thought it was pretty exciting being at the Juneteenth celebration, sorry. And Bill immediately said, we've got to do something more as a city and set the example. So that was pretty cool of you, and appreciate your leadership on that, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item J, number 1. I have to recuse myself from this one. State statute requires, since I own a building in TIF, that I do not participate in the conversation or the vote on any TIF-related matters. So at this point, if you all are okay with it, I'm going to hand the gavel over to Senior Alderman Favor so he can run this part of the meeting.
Item J, ordinances, second reading. Number 1, ordinance 2021-019, amending the fiscal year 2020 city budget to conform to audited findings. Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second.
So it has been moved by Alderman McAdams, seconded by Alderman Morris. City Manager?
Only just to say that this matter was reviewed by the council at the last regular meeting, and there were no objections raised at that time. These are FY 2020 budget amendments that inform the final document that was presented by Brian Lefevre to you this evening, and I strongly urge your approval of this so we can proceed.
Any comments? Roll call?
Perkins.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Acting Chair Favor.
Yes.
That is 6 yes.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Sir, you're missing one vote. Alderman Larson.
Oh, I apologize. Alderman Larson.
Yes.
That's 6 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes, or ordinance passes, sorry. Item K, resolutions. Number 1, resolution 2021-047, receiving and filing the fiscal year 2020 comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR, audit report, and management letter. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
So moved by Alderman Tracy Smith, seconded by Alderman McAdams. City Manager.
Thank you. With the approval of the ordinance and the details of which will be incorporated into the final published audit documents, we urge you to approve this resolution, which receives and files that amended 2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, Audit Report, and Management Letter.
Any comments? The only comment I was going to add was, again, just to, for the city and the finance team, just to congratulate them on, this would then be the 20, they've received 27 consecutive awards from the GFOA and eligible for the 28th if we get it in on time. So, roll call.
Smith.
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
6 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. Mayor Barnes.
Thank you. We will get it in on time, I assure you.
Thank you, Alderman Favor. You make that look really easy. All right, moving on to item number 2, Resolution 2021-048, authorizing the waiver of competitive bidding and payment to Foster & Foster Incorporated in the amount of $20,467 for fiscal year 2020 actuarial services. City Manager Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor. As I said in the background, this is another important financial step that we take every year. We annually contract with an independent actuarial service, and that service does a couple things for us. It presents.
Hey, City Manager, actually, point of order, I guess. I didn't get a motion to talk about this. Sorry about that. So I would take a motion to bring this before the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Morris, seconded by Alderman McAdams. Sorry, City Manager, go ahead.
Well, it's more important to do that. So the actuary presents reports every year after reviewing where we are with our fire and police pension funds, what we have to do by the way of funding and annual allocations that have to come from the city from whatever source. And also takes a look at our retiree health insurance plan. The city's fire and police pension funds do reimburse the city for the respective actuary costs. The costs for the actuarial services this year exceed my spending authority, which is $20,000. The total amount is $20,467. It wasn't my call to trust myself to spend that extra $467. That's your call. So it's before you in the form of a resolution, and I recommend your approval.
Council, comments, questions? Hearing none, roll call.
McAdams,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Smith,
Abstain.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
That is 5 ayes, 0 nays, and an abstention.
Resolution passes. All right, item number 3, Resolution 2021-049, authorizing a law enforcement embedded social worker agreement with Northwestern Medicine Ben Gordon Center. I'd take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman McAdams, seconded by Alderman Smith. City Manager Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to set this up, and if Chief Byrd wants to add anything, certainly is welcome to do so. As you know, it was not quite a year ago that Council approved an agreement with Northwestern Medicine to embed a social worker. Approximately 30 hours a week with our police department. We had been involved in a trial, a pilot, with Northwestern and the Ben Gordon Center to see how it would work. Other communities have done this, and we liked the results of that pilot, and so in July a year ago we went forward with it. At that time, the contract was fully funded by a grant from the DeKalb County Mental Health Board. So the agreement, the one-year agreement has expired, and we had an opportunity to have an extended conversation. We liked the results. The council has some notes at your places. In the black ink was to describe the report that was prepared about 3 months ago, and the red ink updates that for the most recent quarter that we have numbers collected for, so in the first quarter of this year. And I can say that this program has been successful. We've relied on the social worker to do a couple of general things, as I say in the background. On some occasions, the social worker will arrive at the scene, say, with a person, a family who have had some contact with us. It's not an emergent situation. It's not a volatile situation, but it's an instance where a police officer may have been summoned, or maybe the social worker just wants to show some progress and something that might have involved the police previously. And then maybe the social worker determines that it's not within that person's expertise to help further. There may be some child care issues and other issues, and so that social worker then becomes a liaison with a lot of other potential not-for-profit social agencies, social service agencies in the community. And we have a great social net. So that's one. And another is that we have some people who are frequent callers, sometimes 911, sometimes not. And we develop really kind of a caseload of persons who are looking for some help. Maybe they don't trust other agencies. Maybe they're just not familiar with other agencies. And so we throw ourselves in and get involved. And the numbers are telling. We have now, in 9 months, hit 1,000 different individuals with this social worker, and there was a jump in this last quarter, in the first quarter of 2021, as the longer we're at it, I think the better we're doing. And our numbers are comparing well with other communities in Northern Illinois who have tried this with varying degrees of success. So I'm very happy to present the possibility of a second social worker. That would mean a social worker on the first 2 shifts, and ultimately I'd like to get a social worker working with all 3 shifts, because you can imagine that we don't have police officers that just work during the day. We have them working all around the clock, 365 days a year. 365 days a year we have people who might be in need, and I think this model is showing so far good results. So we negotiated, and we were very pleased with the willingness of Northwestern to negotiate with us. I think they've given us a very fair deal for 2 persons for $67,092. Pretty good price for the services that we hope to provide with their support. So I bring this to you. I strongly encourage you to support this. And I'll just tip you to the fact that if I come back, and it may be the second meeting in July, one of the things that I'd like to see us do is a little cost shifting, being able to bring in some federal dollars to fill some other holes in the police department and maybe free up some money to hire that 3rd person so we can have 3 shifts. And we would be really, I think, at the leading edge of this fairly new approach to community policing. And I think it's a great alternative to other possibilities.
Council? Alderwoman Morse?
So, to clarify, we have had 1 social worker working. How many hours a day?
A day. It's most days it's 8.
Okay.
Initially, the contract was 30 that we pay, but 40 hours. It's a regular work week.
I just think these numbers are phenomenal.
Incredible. Yeah.
We're looking at the program has received 433 referrals from the police department alone. Yeah. So looking at adding a second one could mean double, clearly, obviously, double the results, and that's just fantastic. And imagine this person is probably only working 40 hours a week, not, so
It's
there's
getting paid for 40, but I think there's a little more
right,
there, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But very exciting to grow this
Thank you.
opportunity, and really a great response so far. Thank you.
And it's a phenomenal person. We are very pleased with Abby, and I think her associate will be just like her.
Yes, sir, if I could.
Please.
Thanks. So one of the biggest things, so the council is aware, is that the referrals are extremely important, but the biggest thing about the referrals is the windows that we respond in. So basically what I mean by that is we would like to respond with a referral within 48 hours. The longer we wait to respond, the ability to help that party or that family lessens, because at that point, they might, their response might be to us, well, yeah, I needed you 2 days ago. But now we're in the 72nd hour, 96th hour. Yeah, I don't really want your assistance any longer, or they might have changed their whole posture. So when you look at these referrals, I mean, this is a robust number for one person to try to get in touch with those families or those affected parties within 48 hours' time. So that's why I think where you see the need for additional assistance as well. Now, those referral numbers could change if we had a social worker on every shift, because now you're seeing that one-on-one contact actually at the time of the actual event. So referrals, those numbers could vary, and be swayed one way or the other, but we're still getting the same impact, because now we're getting that initial contact at the scene of the incident, where instead of I'll give you an example. A lot of times, a lot of these situations occur during the late hours of the night, where the social worker we do have on at the PD is not working at that time, and then those referrals come in the next day. Say, hey, we had an incident. You really need to look at them. And the benefit of having these referrals and making those contacts is to intervene, so we won't have that same contact in the future, or possibly avoid it totally, and make that situation a lot better for the people that are affected. So I just wanted to make a point about that 48-hour window is when we would like to try to have that contact done or initiated. And as you can imagine, with this number for one person, that would be extremely hard to do. So thank you.
Yes, Alderwoman Morris.
I'm wondering, and this may be, preemptive, premature, I'm wondering if you're tracking any subsequent results-oriented statistics, and maybe that's just a good idea moving forward, identifying what outcomes as a result of this might be good to start tracking.
Yes, and and that's a good point. And I have talked to our mental health advisor in the building, which, like I said, she's doing an amazing job at this point. And I know she is tracking that. We don't have the stats to build that out yet, but I'm sure in the future we will have some numbers to give you. Because at the end of the day, I mean, without an outcome result, I mean, what are we really doing? I mean, how are we going to manage or even determine where we go from here going forward if we don't know what those outcomes are, especially a program starting this early. I mean, we're in infancy stages right now, and what we're also doing is trendsetters for this area as well. So I'm very excited about, that the DeKalb Police Department is setting trends going forward, which I would imagine will be the future of policing. And I will tell you, for an officer who worked 3 decades, I wish we would have had this kind of help in the late 80s and early 90s when I started my career. Law enforcement officers are also always called, or at least in the past they were, to handle situations they probably weren't equipped to handle. And situations exactly like this. And believe it or not, we got through it, but only by the grace of God did that happen. We were lucky in a lot of cases, but now we have experts who can assist us going forward. So this is a very important cause for the police department. Thank you.
City Manager Nicholas.
Just a final note, the social work has been involved in crisis intervention training with not only our officers but other DeKalb County law enforcement officials, and that's been important too. That's obviously a kind of training that we want to accentuate through our ranks, and other agencies do too. It's part of the shift toward more assertive community policing and being a resource and being to mentor. So.
Any other comments, questions? Alderwoman, can I have Alderman Perkins first? Go ahead.
So one point of clarity then too. This was a part of the budget. It was planned into the budget. We had
Correct.
3 in the budget in this role, and this would potentially be the second add into the budget. Correct?
Two in the budget, and the third is something we'll have to amend the budget to bring that in. We had talked about it, but at the time we put the budget, the current budget together in November, December last year. We didn't know with COVID and so forth, and we hadn't received the federal money, the CARES Act and all that. We didn't know where we'd be, so we didn't plug it in. But we certainly talked about it.
Yeah, the desire is to move to 3
Yeah.
over time, right?
Yeah.
Alderwoman Morris?
I'm just thinking back to outcomes, and I'm thinking, you'll have outcomes that are more social work related, but I'm also thinking of outcomes more related to crime, which is, maybe a bigger leap there, but the more relevant factor, perhaps. That's all.
We'll have to, yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. We have to try to, a lot of places are trying to develop performance criteria that are not just wishful. They are emphatic. You can really track, and they're lasting. That's what we want to try to do. So we're on the edge here. We'll focus on that as time goes along.
That's exciting.
And also, ma'am, you're right. I can see there is a direct correlation with that, because if we can interdict these situations ahead of time. So in the past, a lot of these situations could end up with an ag battery to a police officer type offense, because we were unable to get control of the situation before it got out of hand. So of course that would raise our statistical data as well as, there's so many other variations of criminal trespass to land, because people are in places where they shouldn't be. And we have to, so that affects our statistical data as well. So if we can interdict those on the front end, a lot of these type of situations we can avoid. So it would affect our crime rate and our statistical data in a positive way, because we're not making those normal arrests that we in the past would normally have to make. So I agree with you.
That's awesome.
Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
McAdams.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, resolution passes. Moving on to agenda item 4, resolution 2021-050, adopting the Upper South Branch of the Kishwaukee River Watershed Improvement Plan. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor?
Second.
That was moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderwoman Morris. City Manager Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor. Many people don't know, but certainly the DeKalb Soil and Water Conservation District knows, and Zach Gill knows, who works with the district, that we are in DeKalb right on the edge of one of the most phenomenal water recharge areas in the continental United States. And so it's important that we are careful about what develops in our watershed, and the dominant watershed is the Upper South Branch of the Kishwaukee River. And it was thought by the district that we ought to have a plan that can assist local agencies and developers. It's just advisory, not a regulatory plan. What best management practices are, and how we could coordinate decisions that are made on that, which is basically notifying the Soil and Water Conservation District whenever city notifications whenever there are changes to occur on or in that watershed. So a plan was developed. It's been adopted by the county board. It's being adopted by other municipalities in the county of DeKalb, and it's before you tonight. We recommend its approval.
Questions or comments from council? Yes, Alderwoman Larson.
A lot of you know we have a farm, I'm from a farm background, and all of these little tributaries and this whole network, farmers use it to drain their soil. This is what retention ponds will eventually let it trickle down to from the city. And if you have certain areas that are clogged and it doesn't all work, it affects the whole system. So it's really important that everybody in this water reclamation or the whole system of the Kishwaukee is on board with this, because if some aren't and abuse it, it will trickle back or backflow into everything else. So it's a health we all need to address.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, then roll call, please.
Favor.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. All right, we're going to rinse and repeat here. On the next item, I have to recuse myself again because the Architectural Improvement Program that's coming before us is actually a TIF-funded program. So once again, by state statute, I will recuse myself and have Senior Alderman Anthony Favor lead the charge. Thank you.
Item 5, Resolution 2021-051, authorizing an architectural improvement program, AIP, economic incentive for Hickey's Corner Store, located at 218 West Lincoln Highway in the amount of $1,185. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It was moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman Morris, City Manager.
Thank you. As it says in the background, we have a long, second-generation corner store at 218 West Lincoln, and our TIF Architectural Improvement Program was of interest. He's making a substantial improvement and upgrading the asphalt parking and driving areas on this lot. And it's a well-traveled lot, a lot of customers every day. We appreciate that he's looking to upgrade. But for maintenance or deferred maintenance, that AIP program will only provide up to 10% of the reimbursement if approved by the council. In this case, the overall cost was $11,850. The 10% would be $1,185, and that's the request before you tonight. As you know, the AIP program is basically a forgivable loan. It's understood that the recipient will be committed to the use for another 5 years. Every year, in effect, 20% of the loan is forgiven, and on the 5th anniversary, we release the loan obligation. So we support this and hope you will too.
Comments or discussion? All right, roll call?
Morris.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
6 ayes, 0 nays.
Mayor, he'd like his own gavel.
Totally. All right, wonderful. Moving on to Agenda L, item number 1, ordinance in the first reading, Ordinance 2021-021, amending Chapter 51, Traffic, Schedule A, one-way traffic, as it pertains to establishing one-way traffic for a segment of North 6th Street. I would take a motion to bring this before the floor.
So moved.
Second?
It was moved by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Favor. City Manager Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor. This is before you tonight on first reading only. Whenever there's going to be a change in the use of a street, we'd like to have some general discussion, get a little bit of media coverage of the discussion, and then bring it back to you in a couple weeks after the public's had a chance to weigh in one way or another, as well as nearby residents and businesses. So the setup is in your background. The city was approached, Zach Gill, our city engineer, was approached by the Cal County Housing Authority, which has a very busy office in that block between Oak and Pine on North 6th Street, and limited off-street parking. There's some on-street parking there on both sides of that one block, but what was one time known as the DeKalb County Farm Bureau before it relocated to Peace and Bethany, and it's had some other uses, is now being considered for for a new use, and it will probably have employees who will be using some of the spaces on the west side of North Sixth in that one block. And so the concern was, will there be adequate parking to serve all the needs? And the thought was, well, maybe some parking could be gained on-street if that became a one-way section, then some diagonal parking could be put on the west side, parallel parking on the east side. And then the question comes up naturally. We have a one-way section right now, northbound from Lincoln Highway up to Locust, and Zach had visited with some of the businesses between Locust and Oak, and there was some concern about converting that from 2-lane to 1-lane. So the proposition before you tonight was go 1 lane and then 2 lane and then 1 lane and then 2. So I think you have 2 choices to discuss tonight. One is to consider what's before you in the background, which is that 1 lane and 2 lane and 1 lane and so forth. Or you could decide to, I guess maybe 3 choices. Make it all one way from Lincoln Highway north to Pine, or you can do nothing. You can leave it as it is. There aren't other off-street spaces that are public in that vicinity. There are some lots that aren't well used, but they're privately owned, not publicly owned, and the city can't control the use at this point. So those are the choices before you tonight, and be happy to answer any questions. Zach Gillis here and can answer questions. He did the legwork here. He also did a survey back in March of the property owners, so there was a more formal request for information and comment, and then he's been on the street addressing some conversations just in the last couple of weeks as well.
Council, questions? Alderwoman Larson?
So the 3 lots that are like north and south of the old Farm Bureau building and southeast, they're all private lots? for
To the,
parking?
just south of the old Farm Bureau?
Yep, and
Yes.
then north at the Farm Bureau, that's?
Yes.
And then southeast, so
They're-
they're private,
they're
and they
private.
can't be used by these?
Well, they're privately,
private,
it'd have to
so-
be negotiated or
Okay,
discussed,
okay.
yeah.
So that would be like a tow zone?
Private parking, tow signs
I-
within them, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I was under the impression that one of those was
As a
public, but
public.
yeah, it's not.
Mhm.
Yes, Alderman Smith.
Zach and I've had some conversations, I guess, both ways on this, and as some who frequents a business down that way, as my wife does too for McDonald's, but I won't mention, it's very, when you come out of that and go north on 6th Street, it's very confusing. And I think some people attempt to come in from the south as well, north coming south. I think it would be a positive for the neighborhood to have it one continuous runway street all the way up to Pine Street. I understand, the issue with, some of the, maybe one of the businesses on some parking, but maybe we could help that out with some directional signs. Would that fit, if that's what they're after, to say, here, this business is down the one-way street, so they don't drive off? Would that be contingent with some of our downtown plans, or would that cause more issues? I'm just throwing it out there. Zach, you know how me, I throw out these wild ideas, and
I don't think that's beyond the realm of discussion. If you're talking about on 7th Street,
yeah,
of
or
us,
even,
for
yeah,
certain businesses to make sure that they know to proceed at least to Locust before they try to advance north of those businesses. That's not unusual for a downtown business district that has employed one-ways.
I mean, we're going to have a lot going on downtown here in the very near future, and I think maybe this is the time to provide some direction to residents that may be coming through and wanting to go to know where certain places are. I don't know, maybe we get some buy-in with more businesses. I just think it's a good idea for that particular area to direct it. It's very confusing. And I also know how busy the housing authority is. I'm through there 2 or 3 times a day, and they could use the parking, and there is no parking for them. And they're very important to us as far as the city's concerned. So I think it would be, very plus, and my understanding is the residents were actually in favor of this, the ones just south of Pine, correct?
Correct. Yeah, if I may.
Sir.
Absolutely.
That block in itself that we're questioning passes its own merit for the one-way treatment. We have a large development along the one side, who also has the parking lot.
Can we identify the location exactly on the map, please? Sorry, I can't.
I don't know, his vibrator hasn't exploded yet. There we go, okay. So this is the block we're referring to. We have Oak to Pine.
So 315 is the number on top of there.
Yes. So these are the businesses in question that are asking for this one-way treatment, because across the street, there is space for about 11 currently parallel spots. They're unmarked. If converted to diagonal spots, we'd get at least 20. So you're really talking about grabbing a lot of capacity for them there. There's 3 residential homes right there. They all responded positively to the scenario, because as I referenced Camelot before, there is no room for them to park across the street. So in order to park in front of their homes, they have to be northbound anyways to parallel park in front of their homes. I assured them that's a reasonable consideration. We will not convert that to diagonal. So really their daily routine, if you will, wouldn't change. And of course the alley is behind their home where they have access to their garages or driveways in the rear. So it has no appreciable impact to the residential homes. So they were either ambivalent or in favor of it. And then obviously the businesses there were all in favor of it. And with Camelot having their own off-street lot, and also currently basically being vacant, is my understanding, there isn't a lot of negative impact to them for this. So then that just puts us back into the question of what do we do with this intermittent block? As a city engineer, yes, I'd like to have it be all one way all the way through, but I don't live in a video game. There's people that own businesses there. So we wanted their input, and it's my job to provide you the information. That was the feedback. It was only one business on that block, but there are only probably 3 to 4, so that to me is a relevant number to report. One big thing we look at, again, when we're talking about the merit of the northern block, traffic engineers will really get worked up about what they call origin destination. Okay, where you're coming from, where you're going. In this place, the gravity of Lincoln Highway, which is where people would want to go, it's off the board already. It's already one-way northbound. If you live around there, you're not out anything. You already couldn't proceed to Lincoln Highway and have to use 4th or 7th as it is. So that's why I felt comfortable with that block converting to one-way. And again, it's to your wisdom as the council as to if you feel that intermittent block should be one-way as well.
Yes, Alderwoman Norris.
Is 508 Camelot?
I believe, yeah, sorry, let me.
Sorry, I know the numbers are really tiny.
That would be 315 would be Camelot, yeah.
Okay.
The odd numbers would be, yeah, well, it's the only odd number on there, 315.
And so who owns that parking lot just, I want to guess, north?
That'd be up there to the north.
That's part of the
I just did something bad.
Right, and Camelot is vacant. My understanding is they've moved to Sycamore.
Yeah, there is.
And they're under a
party
different
that's
name.
interested-
Yeah, you're referring to that
There's been
lot
a
there,
broker
yeah.
involved, and there's a party that's interested in
Yeah.
purchasing.
And they also have access not only off of 6th, but also off of Pine. So users are not affected by that. They can take Pine, obviously, both directions and enter into that lot from the north, which would probably be their primary direction of travel anyways to get there from 7th or 4th.
Alderman Favor.
So are you saying you're going to, on the west side, that you're going to put in diagonal parking? Because in the background here, it says that maybe it was on the east side, the residences were opposed to that, but so it didn't sound like we were gaining a whole lot if we didn't put in diagonal parking. So the plan is to put a diagonal parking on the west side?
Yes, so on the east side here, there are 3 residential homes. They currently have parallel on-street parking. That would not change. It's currently already for northbound traffic, given that it's obviously on the east side of the street. It would be on the west side, here in front of Camelot, which is within the public right-of-way, It's currently used as just kind of free-for-all parallel parking. We would convert that to northbound 45-degree parking, and we would gain, it currently can fit 10 to 11 cars, depending on how kindly people want to park. If we have it striped as diagonal, it's 20 spots. So we're gaining 9 to 10 spots for that demand there.
And my only other, if you travel to DeKalb for an event from out of town, there's a lot going on with the one-way streets, the train traffic coming through, trying to get across 23. I know we've done the same thing here on 2nd and 3rd Street. We've got two-way traffic with one-way on each end of those. And it does make it a little confusing, especially at night if you're coming to a show or something. But
Sure. There's also a curious thing is that the block we're talking about in the middle actually already has diagonal parking for northbound only, even though it's a two-way street, just coincidentally enough. So again, when you speak to origin destination, if you're coming from Lincoln Highway to go to our lovely brewery down there, you're already northbound. If you're coming after a show from the Egyptian, you're already driving on Locust and you're going northbound to go up. There isn't a lot of feed of people trying to,
Right.
come down south, so.
okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Morris?
I think I trust Zach's judgment on this.
Any other comments or questions? So
So to clarify then, that the prevailing thought really is that we're leaning more towards one way for those 3 blocks to the north then. We're steering away, no pun intended, but we're steering away from one way, two-way, one way, two-way, right?
I think that is a consideration. That's why it was important for this to remain as a first reading. So again,
Okay.
those businesses, who I believe are Alderman Smith's constituents, would have a chance to, again, they've already shared their opinion with me, but would have a chance again to interact with the council, so. And again, I know you get a crazy letter from the city engineer, maybe not everyone responded, they probably threw it in the trash. So hopefully this maybe gets a little bit more publicity and we get some more robust feedback.
Is there any specific direction you're looking from us, City Manager Nicholas?
I think Alderman Perkins maybe suggested if the council is generally of same opinion, then I can bring that back and refine the ordinance a little bit. One way northbound from Lincoln Highway up to Pine.
Does that sound good to everybody? All right, a lot of heads nodding. All right, wonderful. Thank you, Zach. We need a roll call on that, though. So roll call?
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
So,
Alderman Faber.
I guess my question was going to be, is it the way it's written and the way it's presented in the motion that's brought to the floor, it's only for a segment, correct? So do we need to modify?
Yeah, so that it could get confusing the next meeting because you'd have to amend the ordinance because the ordinance was set up where it was one way, then two way, then one way.
Yeah.
So what you want is all one way. We could.
Motion to table and then have it reintroduced at the next meeting.
It's City Clerk Cohen.
Oh.
Well, so is your ward?
Tracy's.
Okay. So what does the board want? Do you want it as a segment or do you want it one way? How do you want us to vote in your ward so that you can get all the input before the next meeting in 2 weeks and let us know if we need to amend it?
Yeah, I think what Zach's looking for is just to get it out there more. He's had contact with a lot of the residents down there, the businesses, and I think he just wants to get more input. I think we should vote on it as is, and then would amend it the second time. Or if we get a lot of comments and we need to make more changes, I think we could push it off another 2 weeks. Even, at least we're getting more involvement. Because, things like the signage just clicked in my head there that maybe that would, with all of our downtown work, that maybe this is the time it's a bigger concept for the entire downtown. So.
If I may just speak to the nuts and bolts of the ordinance, I mean, it's always going to be a segment because North First Street is longer than 3 blocks, so that doesn't need to be changed. It's just, there's some language in there that actually pulls out that one little segment where it says except for blah, blah, blah. If you strike all that and simply amend the ordinance as it currently is on the books, where it says Lincoln Highway to Locust, you simply replace the word locust with the word pine in the existing ordinance, and that's it, if you choose to do the entire run.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Question is, do we need to do that now? Or can we do that for a second?
So you could approve this on first reading, and then you have to unapprove it if you want to go one lane all the way, or one way all the way up. So, or you can you could table this, you could refuse to take action on it.
Well, I think we want to move forward with it. We just want to know how to move forward.
I know you do. You can just not,
Maybe we
it'll always go down as that ordinance that never had a home, but it's okay. You can just refuse to take, you're just basically telling us, I think you're telling us, bring back an ordinance that shows one way from Lincoln Highway north, however the language.
And that would be first reading the next time then, too?
We do first and second, I would think, depending
Okay.
on what the comment
Right.
is between now and
Because
then.
we're not under the gun right now.
No.
Yeah, okay, all right. Alderman Perkins?
I think that makes sense to bring back something that we can.
Clean.
That's clean, that we can vote on, because to me, voting on if I were to vote on this one-way, two-way,
And then vote
one-way,
against yourself
two-way,
the next-
I'd be a no, because it's, and then it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But if we bring back something clean, then,
So
okay.
is there a motion already on the floor?
Yes.
And is there a second?
Yes.
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 We're just looking,
Could have died for a lack of a second, but if I'd been quicker. I could have-
so what we need to do is vote no on
Yeah.
this, to vote it
Correct.
down.
Yeah.
And then next meeting,
Correct.
you'll come to us with the
Correct. We'll
revised
bring
ordinance
back-
for first
We'll
reading.
bring back something else.
Okay, all right. We're all clear?
Yeah, and I think Mayor, if I may, if we get our
Yeah.
press people to help us out with some input from the citizens, I think that would really help. I think this is important, so thank you.
So we're good to
I'm
proceed?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to call roll, and the goal is to vote this down. All right. Just want to be clear. Roll call.
Larson.
No.
Perkins.
Perkins.
No.
Smith.
No.
McAdams.
No.
Favor.
No.
Morris,
No.
Mayor Barnes.
No.
0 ayes, 7 nays.
The ordinance fails.
That's a lot of work.
All right. Moving on to item number 2. I know we have a lot of excited people that we finally reached this agenda item. I wish we could have brought it up to the beginning, but there's an order to things, so thanks for your patience. So item number 2, ordinance 2021-022, approving the final development plan for the property located at 217 Franklin Street, safe passage. Can I take a motion to bring this before the floor?
So moved.
Second?
So it's moved by Alderwoman Morris, seconded by Alderman Smith, or was it McAdams?
No.
Oh, okay, Alderman Smith seconded it. City Manager Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor. Since December of 2020, when the council approved the preliminary plan for the site at 217 Franklin Street, Safe Passage team has been working very hard to come back with a final development plan, which was brought to the Planning and Zoning Commission back on June 21st, and they reviewed the changes, and there were some details that were required as part of that final development plan. There was a fairly detailed staff report, and the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend your approval with the plans that were shown in Exhibit A of that staff report and all the conditions that were discussed at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we support their recommendation to you.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Perkins.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Ordinance passes.
Mayor,
Yes.
that was a first reading. Now we have to go to second reading. The petitioners requested your approval on second reading.
Do I have a motion before the floor to approve second reading?
Move to waive second reading and approve.
Second.
That was moved by Alderwoman Morris and seconded by Alderman Perkins. Roll call.
Smith,
Yes.
McAdams,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Second reading passes. Excellent. You betcha. Thanks for coming out, y'all. All right, moving on to agenda item M, reports and communications, council reports. You want to kick it off, Alderwoman Morris?
Sure. Just want to make sure everyone knows there is an AGN, Annie Glidden North neighborhood meeting that is tomorrow at 5:30 at Westminster Presbyterian Church. That's located at 830 North Annie Glidden Road. That's all.
Excellent. Alderwoman Larson?
Just a little neighborhood news about everybody with this rain that we're finally getting. I noticed in my neighborhood, all of the rainwater intakes were like chock full of all the leaves and yard waste that's been accumulating because we haven't had rain. So get out in front of your house or your neighbors and clean them out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Alderman Perkins?
No report.
Alderman Smith, I know.
Thank you for everybody that came out to the ward meeting at Fire Station Number 1 last week. Thank you to city staff for being there. It was a very robust meeting. Everything, the information, I thank Chief Byrd for speaking out with the lady in question we talked about. And again, it was a very good meeting. Thank you.
Alderman McAdams?
No report.
Alderman Favor?
No report.
All right, for me, was at the Juneteenth celebration. That was really cool. The place was packed with vendors, people, music, food. Actually, the food was absolutely amazing. So that was really cool to see, the first year that they did it, to have just such a successful event. So I'm looking forward to the next celebration next year. Thanks to all the alderpersons that I've been meeting with. I've been really enjoying that, so I've been going around trying to do one-on-ones, meet with commissioners, meet with chairs of our commissions, and just getting informed overall on how that works. I will be bringing multiple appointments, both to chair positions and to commissions, probably at our next meeting. Hopefully I'll have all those conversations finalized, which will be good. And then Alderman Smith, yeah, that was a great ward meeting. You had a huge turnout, so that was really cool to see, and it was fun to do it in the fire station, and thanks Chief McMaster for hosting all of us out there. It was a wonderful event. And, last comment too, trash squirrels is around our community, constantly picking up litter, but my ask to our community is, if you could, walk another 10 feet and put your garbage in the garbage can, or refrain from tossing it out your car window. This is our community, this is our home, this is who we are, right? We have pride in our community, and one of the ways we can show pride is making sure that our community is well kept, and we don't need organizations like Trash Squirrels running around picking it up. So I would encourage everyone in the city of DeKalb, please utilize our trash receptacles. They're there, we pay for them, they're emptied all the time, they should be accessible to you. With that, that's all I have. Moving on to agenda item N, executive session. I need approval to hold an executive session to discuss personnel as provided for in 5 ILCS 120/2C1. I would take a motion to approve and move to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
It was moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderman McAdams. I need roll call, right? Yeah, roll call.
Smith,
Yes.
McAdams,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, we'll be moving to executive session. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Really appreciate your support. I look forward to seeing you all soon. And with that, we'll just take a couple minutes to clear the room. No, go ahead, sir. No, we're not done. That's when we come out, then I'm gonna lean over too and be like. It just can't be bigger. It just can't be bigger than mine.